My family voted me out at Dad's $700 celebration dinner. I silently slid a folder across the table, filled with $68,000 worth of receipts. My sister shrieked, and her marriage unraveled. They say family stays tight, but mine clung to me like parasites. It was my father's 60th birthday, a big deal, as Karen dubbed it in the family chat I was excluded from, until it was time to foot the bill. A surprise dinner at a decent steakhouse. Nothing extravagant. The kind of spot with plush booths, butter melting on sizzling steaks, and old jazz crooning too loudly from overhead speakers. I covered the reservation fee. I paid for the personalized cake. I even shelled out for the balloons with Dad's name in silver foil. I arrived early, as always, 15 minutes ahead of schedule. No one smiled, no one waved, not a single glance my way, just a heavy, uneasy quiet, like the moment before a doctor delivers grim news. They were all seated already, my siblings, their partners. Kids running around in paper crowns, hyped up on sugar, oblivious to the tension. My chair was the only one left, squeezed between Karen, my older sister, and Mike, the younger brother who once called me in a panic when his truck broke down in Reno. I'd sent him $1,400 that night without a second thought. No one acknowledged me as I sat. I asked where Mom was. No response. I asked if Dad had seen the gift I'd left at the host stand, a custom-engraved pen I'd saved 4 months to buy. Still nothing. Then Karen leaned close, her lavender perfume hitting me like a punch, and whispered, "You're lucky we even invited you." I blinked. "What?" She pulled back, smirking like she'd just won a bet. Then she stood, raised her glass, and tapped it with a spoon. Clink, clink. "Before we dive into the ribeyes my brother so kindly covered," she began, her voice dripping with theatrics, "we have something to say." The table fell silent. Even the kids froze. "It's time we address something that's been brewing for years," she went on, standing tall like a small-town prosecutor. "Evan's made his choices, his job, his single life, his little cat over there." She waved vaguely at me. "That's okay, but choices come with consequences." My stomach tightened, not because I was blindsided, but because I'd sensed this coming. I'd felt it in the group chats I was never added to, in the half-hearted thanks for my help, in the backhanded jabs disguised as humor. And now, here it was. "So after a family vote," Karen continued, glancing at Mike, at Mom, at Dad, who didn't blink, "we've decided to part ways. As of tonight, you're no longer part of this family." A pause. Not the kind that invites debate, but the kind that shows everyone's already chosen sides. Then, clapping. Hesitant, uneven applause like a toast gone wrong. My cousin Lisa let out a, "Yeah," and raised her drink. Mike nodded like he'd just approved a budget cut. Mom kept slicing her chicken, eyes glued to her plate like nothing was happening. I turned to Dad. "You're okay with this?" He sipped his whiskey and mumbled, "It's probably for the best." My throat tightened. I sat there, surrounded by people I'd financially propped up for over a decade. People whose car payments I'd covered, whose kids I'd taken to amusement parks, whose crises always landed on my doorstep. "You planned this," I said softly. Karen flashed that fake smile she used at every Thanksgiving. "Of course we did. We wanted to be fair." Fair. I reached into my coat, pulled out a thick manila envelope, heavy, deliberate, sealed shut. I placed it on the table, not forcefully, just with finality. "Then you won't need this." Karen raised an eyebrow. "What, your diary?" I smiled faintly. "Not quite. It's everything you assumed I'd never call out." She scoffed, grabbed the envelope, and ripped it open, expecting some petty note or another check with a snarky memo. Instead, she found a stack of documents, printouts, dates, bank transfers, screenshots, names. Her hands shook as she turned the pages. But before we get to her reaction, before the yelling, the denial, the chaos, I need to explain how we got here, because no one cuts off family without cause. And for me, I had 68,000 reasons. They didn't always resent me, not outright. It was more like I slowly stopped being useful in the way they wanted. Growing up, I was the quiet kid, the responsible one, the one who stayed out of trouble, didn't demand attention, and fixed the printer without being asked. While Karen threw fits and Mike broke furniture, I was doing chores and troubleshooting the router. And the thing about being the easy kid in a chaotic family? You don't get praised. You get overlooked. I left home at 18. No fuss, no big farewell. I rented a studio apartment an hour away, worked 2 jobs, and put myself through college. No support. Mom called me independent, like it was a badge. Dad said, "That's just Evan, self-reliant." What he meant was, they didn't have to bother with me. And they didn't. Not when my landlord scammed me. Not when I skipped meals to afford tuition. Not when I graduated magna cum laude with no one clapping for me. But they remembered me when Karen lost her job. "Evan, can you help with rent, just for a month?" They remembered me when Mike's kid was born. "Evan, could you chip in for the stroller, maybe the daycare deposit?" They remembered me every Christmas, every car repair, every urgent need. And I helped, always, because I told myself it was temporary, that family shows up when it counts, that they'd have my back if I ever needed it. But I never needed it, so the scales never balanced. I climbed the ladder, landed a tech job, then a better one. I learned to save, invest, build a safety net. And as my income grew, so did their demands. Bigger, brasher, more expectant, no please, no if you can, just, we need this. You've got the money. Karen once called me Bank of Evan as a joke. They all laughed when I bristled. "Lighten up," Mike said. "It's just a nickname." But I'm not thick-skinned. I just stopped letting it show. Somewhere along the line, I went from brother to ATM. If I skipped a family barbecue, I was distant. If I hesitated on a loan, I was stingy. If I said no, I was abandoning them. The breaking point came last year. Karen wanted to start a boutique fitness studio, Pilates, juices, aromatherapy. "It's not just a gym," she said. "It's a lifestyle." She asked me to co-sign her loan. I said no, calmly, respectfully. I even offered to look over her budget or find her a small business grant. She didn't want advice. She wanted a blank check, a safety net with my name on it. She hung up on me. That was the last time we spoke. After that, the distance grew. Mom stopped sending her passive-aggressive check-in texts. Dad replied with single syllables. Mike unfollowed me on social media. Karen posted a vague rant about shedding toxic energy, paired with a selfie of her burning incense at sunset. Then came the Mother's Day photo, everyone grinning in front of Mom's house, everyone except me. No invite, no heads up. I spent that day in my apartment, eating takeout, scrolling through my bank statements. I went back 6 years, then 8, adding up every transfer, every just this once, every unpaid favor. It totaled $68,000. $68,000. Vanished. And worse than the money? Not one repayment, not a coffee gift card, not a thank you note. So I started the folder. Bank records, text messages, screenshots, dates, amounts. I organized it like I do everything. Labeled sections, a cover page, chronological order, even a chart of family events I wasn't invited to. Overkill? Maybe. But I wasn't plotting revenge. I was gathering evidence of what they refused to acknowledge, because I knew a reckoning was coming, and when it arrived, I didn't want to yell. I didn't want to beg. I wanted to sit at that table, meet their eyes, and show them exactly what they'd done. No drama, no tears, just proof, neatly stapled, hole-punched, undeniable. Karen's smug grin faded by page 2. At first, she flipped through the folder like it was a prank, a sarcastic gift from her uptight brother who couldn't take a jab. But then her expression shifted. Her jaw tightened. The room went quiet. Her hands shook as she turned another page. Her lips quivered, searching for words. "What is this?" she whispered. Mike leaned in. "What's wrong?" She didn't answer. She just stood, too quickly, knocking her wine glass over. It spilled across the table, soaking Dad's shirt. He swore, jumping up. But Karen wasn't looking at him. She was glaring at me. "You had no right," she hissed. I sat still, composed, unfazed. "You had no right to keep track of this," she said louder, waving the folder like it was evidence of a crime. "This is sick. You're obsessive." No one moved, not even the kids. Mom set her knife down, her face ashen, lips trembling. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. Mark, Karen's husband, grabbed the folder and started reading. Then he spoke. $68,000? He looked at me, stunned. I nodded once. Every penny documented, over 8 years. Is this all from you to them? He asked. I nodded again. Confirmed. Mark flipped through more pages. Car repairs? Orthodontist bills? A Bahamas trip? He paused, squinting. Hold on. What's this hotel receipt? Malibu? Karen's eyes widened. She lunged for the folder, frantic. That's nothing. Work trip. Mark didn't budge. You said you were at a yoga retreat with your mom. And just like that, the cracks became chasms. Mark stood and left, folder in hand. No yelling, no scene. Just the door closing behind him. Mom finally spoke. You kept a record? Of everything? I turned to her, my voice steady. Someone had to. You never did. She blinked, stared at her plate, then whispered, We didn't mean to push you away. No, I said. You meant to use me. Her eyes watered. That's not true. It's accurate. Dad cleared his throat. All right, let's not get carried away. We're all just upset. Upset. He thought this was fixable. That's the thing about people like them. They don't hear you until you tear everything down. And even then, they blame you for the mess. I reached into my pocket and pulled out another envelope. Dad sighed. Now what? I said it in front of him. This isn't about money. He opened it, read the first line, froze. Power of attorney? Revoked? He said. Medical proxy, emergency contact, financial backup, all gone, I said. Mom gasped like I'd struck her. You can't mean that. I do, I said. It's already notarized. You'll get the paperwork Monday. You're heartless, Karen snapped, storming back into the room, her makeup streaked. No, I said, standing. I'm finished. Karen turned to Mom, desperate. You're letting him do this? Mom murmured. He's not hearing us. No, I said, louder, scanning the table. You're not hearing me. You had years to hear me. Birthdays, anniversaries, late-night calls, group chats. I gave you time. I gave you money. I gave you trust. And the second I paused, just once, you cast me out like a stranger who overstayed his welcome. I leaned forward, hands on the table. I was your safety net, and now I'm the problem. But here's the difference. I'm not here to clean up your messes anymore. No one spoke. Karen stared at me like I was a stranger. Mike avoided my gaze. Mom looked from the folder to the envelope to Mark's empty chair. Then I said it. The line I'd practiced for months. You didn't lose a brother tonight, you lost your lifeline. And with that, I grabbed my jacket, took one last look around, and walked out. No shouting, no slamming doors, just footsteps, quiet, firm. I left them with their half-eaten cake, lukewarm wine, and heavy silence. I got in my car, powered off my phone, and drove home. For the first time in my life, no one could reach me, and for the first time, I didn't care. That night, I didn't cry. I thought I would. I thought I'd unravel on the drive, shaking, replaying every word, wondering if I'd gone too far. But instead, I felt something else. Calm. Like a hurricane had passed, leaving nothing but clear skies. When I got home, my apartment was still. Just me and the soft hum of the AC. No raised voices seeping through walls, no group texts pinging my phone, no veiled guilt trips from Mom, no sanctimonious quotes from Karen. No, we're family, please, for one more favor. I poured a drink, sat by the window, and let the quiet sink in. For the first time in years, no one needed me, and I wasn't scrambling to fill the void. The next morning, I did something simple, something silly. I made waffles. Not for a family brunch, not for a visit. Just for me. Eggs, strawberries, a dash of vanilla. I sat at my table with my cat purring nearby, fork in hand, and I savored every bite. No texts interrupted me, no emergencies, no guilt. It felt like liberation. Then came the second wave. Clarity. I started jogging in the mornings. I stopped checking social media for hints about Karen and Mark's marriage. I deleted group chats, locked shared accounts, changed my passwords, replaced Mom as my emergency contact with a friend. I made a list of things I'd neglected. Doctor visits, dental checkups, therapy. Yes, therapy. Not because I was shattered, but because I needed guidance to stop carrying everyone else's burdens. To say no without remorse. To stop equating duty with love, my therapist asked. When was the last time someone gave to you without expecting something back? I had no answer, so I decided to change that. I started volunteering at a community kitchen, helping with dishes and meal prep. No one there knew me as the guy with a big paycheck or a history of bailing out family. No one asked for a dime. They just said, "Thanks," and meant it. It was strangely restorative, and slowly, my life expanded. I applied for a job in a new city, somewhere near the ocean, somewhere quieter. I didn't ask for permission or worry about inconveniencing anyone. I just did it. Got the offer, accepted it, packed up. A week before I moved, I got a letter. No sender's address, but I knew Mom's handwriting. Inside, 3 pages, front and back. Page 1 was remorse. "We never meant to make you feel left out." Page 2 was guilt. "Karen's struggling," Mark left. "Dad's cholesterol is up. Sophie misses her uncle." Page 3 was the ask. "We're behind on the house payment. Just a little help. One last time. We swear." I didn't finish reading. I folded the letter, tossed it in the trash, and breathed out. They didn't want me back. They wanted access. They wanted the Evan who never said no, the one who paid quietly, who buried resentment with a nod. But he's gone. That guy, Evan, the problem solver, the walking wallet, doesn't exist anymore. And you know what? The world didn't collapse without him. They found others to lean on. Or maybe they didn't. Maybe they had to face their own chaos. Either way, not my concern. Since the move, life's been calmer. I go to bed with my phone off. I wake up to sunlight. I take long walks. I read books again. I cook for myself. I sleep soundly. I breathe easier. No one's shown up at my door. No tearful voicemails, just quiet. And for the first time, I'm grateful for that quiet. Sometimes I think about Sophie, about what she'll hear about me, about how they'll frame the story when she's old enough to question it. But I also know this. She'll grow up, and she'll notice. Who showed up? Who vanished? Who always helped? And who finally walked away? Maybe one day she'll find me. Maybe she won't. But I'll be here, whole, unencumbered. Me. Someone asked me if I regretted cutting them off. I said, I only regret not doing it sooner. And I meant it. It's been 8 months since the folder hit the table. 8 months since I left that steakhouse and never looked back. Sometimes I wonder if they still talk about it, if they brush it off or rewrite the narrative. Evan lost it. He overreacted. He's holding a grudge. But then I remember, their story doesn't matter anymore. Because I'm not there to hear it, and I'm not their version of me anymore. The old me? He didn't just leave that night. He ended at that table, between the uneaten cake and the spilled wine. The man they could manipulate, guilt, and control. Gone. And what grew in his place wasn't anger. It was peace. Not the kind from vengeance or having the final say, but the kind you find when you decide you don't owe anyone your pain. And if that makes me the bad guy in their tale, fine. You can be the villain in someone else's story and still be the hero in your own. Since I left, the messages have dwindled. At first, they came every few days, some furious, some begging, a few fake apologies laced with manipulation. But I didn't reply, and eventually they ran out of ways to reach me. Well, most of them. Last month, another envelope arrived. No return address, but Mom's handwriting. 3 words. We're still family. No explanation, no accountability, no change, just another tug at the leash. This time, I felt nothing. No anger, no hurt, just nothing. I folded the note, added it to the others in a box labeled past, and moved on. Then I made dinner and watched a show. No chaos, no spiraling, just a Wednesday. That's what healing feels like. Not a cinematic breakthrough, not a speech in a storm, just a regular Wednesday that belongs to you. I still go to therapy, not because I'm broken, but because I'm rebuilding, deliberately, with purpose. I'm learning to stop saying I'm okay when I'm not. I'm learning to prioritize myself without shame. I'm learning that boundaries aren't punishment, they're honesty. Sometimes I wonder how I stayed so long. How many dinners I endured, jaw tight. How many favors I gave while quietly breaking. How many times I told myself family meant swallowing hurt. But now I know better. Family isn't just blood. It's who respects your limits, your worth, your peace. And if someone only calls you family when they need a favor, they're not family. They're a burden. To anyone still trapped in that role, the quiet one, the rescuer, the emotional doormat, I understand. You keep hoping that one more sacrifice will make them see your value. But they won't. Because people who take without gratitude don't change when you give more. They change when you stop. And yes, it'll hurt. It'll feel like carving out a piece of yourself. But what comes after? That calm? That freedom? It's worth it. People say, blood is thicker than water. But the full saying is, the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. Meaning, chosen bonds outweigh inherited ones. I didn't choose my family, but I choose myself now. I choose the Evan who says no without fear, who doesn't apologize for being exhausted, who wakes up without anxiety, who makes waffles just because it's Saturday and the light is perfect. A friend asked me recently, "Do you think they'll ever change?" I paused. "Maybe," I said, "but I'm not waiting to find out. If they do, good for them. If they don't, that's not my burden anymore." I used to think walking away was failure. That cutting ties meant I'd failed as a son, a brother, a good person. But now I know. Walking away was the strongest thing I've ever done. Because staying silent? That was easy. Saying yes? That was reflex. But choosing myself? That took everything. So if you're wondering if you're cruel for setting a boundary, you're not. You're not selfish. You're not wrong. You're just done. And that's not weakness. That's freedom.